From the Bent Pixel Studios in Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Phone Booth Fighting, an absolutely free podcast covering the world of mixed martial arts and so far beyond, with myself, Richard Hunter, and that guy, the two-time UFC heavyweight champion of the world. Who are you?
I'm Frank Mir.
You were so excited to identify yourself.
Prematurely.
That's okay.
Declaration.
That's okay. That's okay. It would be funny if you did that. Okay, here's my new hypothetical for you. Okay.
I like how you always just pull them off my fuck-ups. Like for the longest time there. You know, that's why, Mikey, this was before you got on, but do you know that's why he always goes to me to say the Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter? Because I think it was the first 6 months of the show. I couldn't fucking remember that to save my life.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, seriously, you could have put a gun to my head and go, okay, what's Snapchat, Twitter handle? And I'm like, fuck, I don't know.
You know, I did see a comment.
Your mic. I don't hear you, Mikey. Well, Mikey is back with us, by the way. Porno Mikey, producing over there, was away for a couple of weeks, I think, shooting some triple anal in
There we go. Shit, that's too much.
Over there in Eastern Europe.
You know, I've yet still not to Google triple anal.
Triple anal's funny.
I need to still see an image of that.
Triple anal's funny.
My brain still does not understand the math on that one, but okay.
Well, Mikey will break that down for you in a little bit. But yeah, Mikey, his job was to give out the social media handles, and he screwed it up for so long that when he started getting it right, people patted him on the head like the 4-year-old had just tied his shoes.
Finally got my ABCs right.
I saw one comment that says, like, you know, it's almost not as fun when Frank gets the reads right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. People got accustomed.
Look, people just have different strengths and weaknesses in the brain. Like today I was breaking down a technique that I had seen, and I'm walking, 6 to 8 inches here, jump there, pulling up video feeds of who does it, why, and showing different examples. But then if you're like, so what's the name of the guy that, you know, that you see every day for your therapy for the last 5 years? I'm like, fuck. I don't know.
I went to, all right, well, we're digressing, right? That's fine. It's what we do here on Phone Booth Fighting. We should call it Phone Booth Digressing. A couple of years back, I went to a thing at Adam Carolla's house, and we're standing in his sort of like this little beach house, guest house thing, pool house, I guess is what you'd call it. We're standing there, and my back is to the door, like the French doors, and he's looking out to where he can see somebody approaching the door. And we're talking, and I don't even remember what the subject was, but his wife is coming like over my shoulder, is about to come through the doors. And he interrupts me, and he goes, hey, my wife's coming. He goes, listen, if it comes up in conversation, don't point out the fact that I don't know my kids' teachers' names. I was like, okay, that's a weird random thing to bring up. And he's like, yeah, she's kind of focused on this right now, like that I don't know the kids' teachers. But he's like, why should I pay for the private school? Like, is it that big of a deal? She can keep track of their teachers' names. I'll just cut the checks to keep them in school. Do you know your kids' teachers' names?
Not a fucking clue.
You and Adam Carolla.
No, I'm just sitting here right now. I'm like,
yeah.
I know Ronan's in 3rd grade.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I know what school to go to.
Yeah, you're batting .333 on what grade your kids are in. So
I hope I'm right on that too.
Well, listen, here's the thing. In your defense, Frank, you don't have as much time to
Do people really remember their teachers' names of their kids too?
I don't know. I never had one.
Okay, at home, like I got
a kid. I've had a teacher.
Yeah, I can't ask you to.
Yeah.
No.
Fuck. Yeah, let's see.
I know our dog trainer's name.
Yeah, I know my pet sitter's name. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. But I got one.
Yeah.
One trainer.
No, and for a while there, I used to put it in my notes, but now it's only Ronan in lower school. So if I had to go up to the school and say something, because that happened to me before. I went there and like dropped off a lunch for the boys, and they'd be like, okay, so Cage is in what class? I'm like, fuck, I don't know. These fucking, you can't look that up. You know what I mean? Like, how am I supposed to know this?
You just see Frank at the door of the classroom. How are you today, Mrs. Jackson?
Well, no, I had to call the wife at home and be like, hey, what's the name of Cage's teacher? But I just looked kind of odd. And I just remember thinking that the girl at the front desk probably thought, you know, like, what the hell's your problem?
Yeah, yeah. Well, in your defense, you don't have as much time to catalog your kids' teachers' names because, Frank, you keep saying yes to job opportunities. So give me the rundown, because it has been a whirlwind of. I have a hard enough time keeping up with your calendar, but now it's like gig after gig after gig for the remainder of the year. It's looking like you look busy. What's up?
Well, good news is on the Bellator front, I do have a fight scheduled. I have an opponent's name.
Woohoo!
Bad news is until they release it, I'm not supposed to say anything.
Oh, all right.
So, but I've already signed a bout agreement, and I'm sure the other guy is too. So hopefully that'll be taken care of.
Can you tell me if it is before the end of the year?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Frank Mir returning to Bellator action before the end of the year, fighting a guy.
Yes.
Okay.
There we go.
That's good. It's good.
And then, so a couple grappling opportunities came up. I had
a couple.
The Quintet.
What do we have here? Okay, yep. Quintet 3. Now, this one, first of all, I was loath to find out about on your Instagram. I tell you what, I know that couples and relationships get comfortable, but you are not like you were when we first got together. This business of finding out about important dates on your social media has got to go, mister.
That's okay. If it makes you feel better, I have another grappling match October 20th that I've already agreed to. And I started talking in front of the wife, and she looked at me like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't tell you this yet? She's all, no.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, so don't worry. You're in the same boat as she is.
All right.
I don't tell people shit, I guess.
Yeah.
I think I do. I just don't know who I told what to.
I guess so,
I just have other people that I'm giving information to, I
Probably
guess.
mentioned it to the barista at Starbucks and thought that passed for telling anybody who needed to know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I talk to myself a lot, so sometimes I forget what I say out loud. You know, that inner dialogue, you know?
Yeah. Does that alter ego have a name, that person you talk to?
Dick. My alter ego's a dick.
Well, it pays to follow Frank on Instagram then if you want to find out about stuff before we do. So here's the deal. Friday, October 5th, right here in Las Vegas at the Orleans Arena, you are going to be grappling on the Quintet 3 card. Now, I've been hearing about this card because I think the first time I heard about it was because Uriah Faber's on it.
Yeah, he's fighting Sakuraba.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Legend Sakuraba. I also saw Misha Tate is doing the commentary. She's involved in the commentary.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's going to be on Fight Pass.
Cool and
You
cool.
finally got on Fight Pass after you left the UFC. Now you'll be on Fight Pass.
Imagine that.
Ironically. Yeah.
Well, they black me out.
Yeah. It's just you'll still see the grappling match. There'll just be this moving like black face over Frank's image.
Let's just put an emoji nowadays.
Yeah.
You know, like,
All right. Well, let's talk about this one first. What's the story here?
well, I got the phone call about and they gave me an opportunity to fight a couple different guys. I said, hey, would you be interested in a grappling match? I was like, yeah, because I'm not fighting for a few more months. And so why not, you know? And so this would be submission only. And there was a couple weird things about it, like I can't jump guillotine or something, you know?
Really?
Yeah, so actually tonight I'm going to sit there at Drysdale's. We're going to break out the rules list so we can try to figure out the rules of this thing.
Does that, and maybe you don't know this, but do the rules pertain just to your match? Or is this
No, I think that's the Quintet rules.
Okay.
They sent me the rules over for Quintet.
Gotcha.
I believe there's like no heel hooks. It's points only. Then there's like I forget how overtime is decided.
No, wait, you said points only. Didn't you just say
No,
submission?
sorry. It's no points. No
Oh,
points.
okay,
Submission,
right.
only.
Submission only.
I meant to say submission
Yeah.
only. But then, like I said, there was just a couple weird ones that stuck out on me where it was like, you know, you can't jump guard with the guillotine, you know? And so I kind of texted the guy back. I'm like, can I close guard with the guillotine? But then Tom Lawler was saying he follows the rules. He goes, yeah, you can't close guard. So definitely tonight I'm going to sit there with
you can't close guard at all?
I don't know. We'll pull out the rule list and we'll have to look at it. Maybe if you want. Oh, okay, here we go.
This is exciting. This may lead to your first disqualification. I'm confused already. All right, here we go.
Okay, that's I think in the team grappling tournament. So we're down ways to win.
Okay, submission or tap out, disqualification. Could yeah, nothing.
Okay, so that's how I guess a tiebreaker in my match would be. In case of total,
is his mic a little hot, a little bit?
In the case of same number of warnings in the last fight, the team with the less total warnings wins. Okay, so
but that's all team stuff.
Yeah.
Is part of this team?
Yeah, there is. What it is they do like a 5-on-5 type of.
Oh, that's where the Quintet comes from. Okay.
Yeah, so
I thought it was like a barbershop.
Yeah.
That'd be a quartet.
That was a good throwback too. Yeah,
that'd be a quartet.
And so the first two guys fight each other, and then the winner fights number 2, and he keeps on going. So theoretically, you could have one guy clean out 5 people in front of him. He keeps on going till he loses, and then when he loses, the next guy steps in.
Okay.
So let's say 1 beats 2 and 1 and 2 on the B team, and then all of a sudden he loses to number 3. Well, now number 2 comes in and fights number 3. And then let's say number 3 beats him and works his way to number 4. You know what I mean? It goes back and forth, and so whoever wins, the last man standing.
Okay.
Until whichever team is all his teammates are eliminated is the team that loses.
Okay. Oh, here we go.
So no jumping.
Here we go. Prohibited acts. Okay, no jumping into closed guard.
Oh, okay, that's what it is.
What does that mean? Like you would be standing? What? No, that means you can't.
Wow, immediate disqualification.
Jeez. All right, no heel hooks, no pile driving. That makes sense.
No scissor takedown from standing position. I like defending singles that way. No neck cranks, no pile driving. I don't pile drive people. No heel hooks. That's going to screw me up. I go for heel hooks.
Yeah. Now, no jumping into closed guard. Does that mean jumping guard?
Yeah, no jump
That's
guard.
just
DQ'd. That's going to fuck somebody up.
Yeah.
There are some straight BJJ guys on the card that's going to fuck up.
Yeah. Minor fouls. That all looks like you would expect. Okay.
What did I see the guillotine thing? Go down a little bit again. Maybe that was taken off.
Was it written? Was it handwritten on the form they sent you in Japanese? Maybe it was your opponent snuck that in.
He saw Congo go to sleep. He didn't like
that.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe I guess guillotines are okay. Just can't jump guard with the guillotine.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's find out about that. No jewelry, by the way. That's a prohibited item.
No shoes.
Mm-hmm. Time limits. 1 8-minute round and 1 4-minute round. Okay. Well, this sounds exciting. Now, your opponent, you Googled right before we went on the air, and
I Googled him before.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. That's how I picked who it was, because they gave me a couple different guys to pick from.
Oh, okay.
And so he had, right off the bat, I see that he's an Olympic gold medalist in judo. I was like, oh, that's cool. All the other guys, they're tough guys, but fuck, how many times my actual quote back was, please let it be that guy so I can say I choked out a gold medalist.
I like that. I like that line. Satoshi Ishii. Now, you saw a picture of him and you said you think you rolled with him before.
I think I have.
Boy, this is like a veteran porn star who's trying to remember if they fucked somebody. You know what I mean? I think maybe.
He was here in Vegas, and I think I trained with him.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
I'll have to ask him. Like, do you remember me? Because I think I remember you.
Yeah.
This is like a bad pickup line at a bar. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Don't I know you
before
from
we get
somewhere?
on the mat and roll with each other? Like, have we done this before?
Haven't I been on top of you at some point in the past? Is he a natural heavyweight? I wonder. Do you know anything about his?
Well, the guy that I remember rolling with was closer to 220.
Yeah.
So let's see.
All right. We're going to learn about Satoshi Ishii, Frank's opponent, coming up. You're going to be in the Las Vegas
231 pounds.
There you go.
It's really looking like I remember this guy. He fights at heavyweight and light heavyweight.
Friday, October 5th at the Orleans Arena here in Las Vegas. I tell you what, that weekend, between you doing that on a Friday night and Mikey getting married on the Saturday night, more on that later, and Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov fighting the night of Saturday, October 6th, Dave Grohl and his Foo Fighters have really put a hitch in my schedule, because this is my annual weekend camping trip with the Foo Fighters for their Cal Jam Music Festival. And I do this every year, and I'm going to have so much to find out about. I'm going to have to keep track of, first, Friday night, I guess, after the music, I'll be in a tent watching your grappling match on Fight Pass. And then the next night, after Foo Fighters play, I'll be in that same tent watching Khabib and Conor on my phone. And I got to check in on Mikey and make sure he didn't get left at the altar. I got to make sure nobody objected. I have always wanted to be at a wedding where someone objected. Are you guys going to have that in your, where it's like, if anyone objects now, forever hold your peace? Are you
unless
doing that?
the officiant goes off script, then no.
Could you ask him to add that line? I think that it's fun. It creates a little sense of drama, even though it never happens. You know?
Yeah, we'll see.
I've always wanted to be at a wedding where that happened, and it never has occurred. Anyway, we'll hear more about Porno Mikey's porno wedding here a little bit later on when he does his segment. We're doing Porno Mikey's headlines again. That had a very successful maiden voyage last time he was with us, so we'll be doing that too a little later in the show. Okay, so let's review, Frank. So far, you're going to be fighting a guy in Bellator before the end of the year.
Right.
More on that later. We'll tell you who and when as soon as we get the go-ahead from Bellator to talk about it publicly. You will be grappling in the meantime Friday, October 5th here in Las Vegas. That's going to stream live on Fight Pass, part of the Quintet 3 card. And I also happened to hear from a little MMA birdie that you're going to be returning to the commentators table, or the broadcast crew anyway, for Bellator in October for not one, but two cards.
Back-to-back
What's
shows.
the story here?
Yeah, I got the call to ask if I would work the desk, and I said absolutely. So I guess the analyst table with Jay Glazer will be on the first one, I think, for the Friday card.
Okay.
But then Jay, I think, has NFL obligations and isn't able to do it on the next day. So then they told me I'll be with Jen Brown on the second day. So they said that after the first card's done, we'll all jump inside of a bus, and the first one's either in Connecticut or New York, and then vice versa.
Yeah, it's Bellator 207 and 208. They're taking place back-to-back nights, October 12th and 13th. And, in fact, I'll tell you specifically, the interesting thing about that, and this certainly will pertain to you, is that both of those fight cards have the next rounds of the heavyweight tournament. So Bellator 207, which is on the 12th, that's in Connecticut. That's going to have Matt Mitrione and Ryan Bader. And then the very next night, which is October 13th in Uniondale, New York, that's Fedor and Chael Sonnen. Smart of them to do it that way, too, because, one, I mean, that's kind of a cool element of back-to-back cards, and you've got immediate results of the heavyweight semifinals, and then also, I mean, if you got into a situation where you had some kind of injury or something like that, I guess you got a little bit to play with there if you had to move some people around.
Yeah, plus both guys, then the winners are going to have about the same amount of time, mean, within 24 hours of rest and preparation. So I think, where even if a difference of 2 weeks when you have a fight and they're going to be turned around probably fighting in December, 2 weeks can be a big difference now when you're talking, between 12 weeks and 10 weeks, healing from an injury and then getting back on board. So I think that I was wondering how they were going to do that because, obviously hopscotching when you have the 8 men going down to 4, you can kind of spread it out a little bit. But then as the year was coming down, going from 4 to now you're finalists, you're going to want them fighting relatively close to each other. And I think that does make sense because having them there, you can even flip-flop. At that point, let's say Bader hurts his knee and he needs a month off. Well, or, you still have the fights going on. Or if both guys on both sides get hurt, you can actually have them cross-fight each other, meaning that, like, for example, let's say, Fedor doesn't make it there and Bader doesn't. You could have Mitrione now and Chael fight each other. They're both ready and on weight. And then you can have, 2 weeks later, the two that weren't able to due to injury or something, So I think it gives you a lot of wiggle room to make, adjustments.
Yeah, that's great news on all Frank Mir fronts there, but I think especially getting to return to the broadcast booth for Bellator, I should be making your broadcast debut, but I know when you signed with Bellator originally, that was a mutual hope of theirs that you'd be able to do some commentary, and then you were doing so much ACB at the time. That didn't really work out schedule-wise, but with fewer ACB cards, this has opened up some opportunities. So.
Yeah, and so I won't be doing commentary.
I say commentary, but yeah.
So that if you turn it on and you don't see me cage side, don't freak out.
Right.
But I will be in between every time they shoot to the desk, breaking down and giving my 2 cents on fights that occurred and fights that were about to happen. I just won't be able to give my live play-by-play feedback. And so, it's great. It's a step in the right direction to go back and working on there. And then October 20th, Drysdale, I think, is putting on a tournament here in town for that new CBD black belt company that I'm doing doing a sponsorship with now with.
Oh, the CBD oil?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I started, you know what? I was never much of a pot smoker growing up. It never really was my drug of choice. Just made me paranoid and eat the fucking food out of the fridge and go to sleep. It was like the end of the night. I never understood people who could get high and still go out.
Yeah.
I'm like, if we get high right now, the night is over with, dude. That's my personality. I don't have a lot of energy to begin with. You're going to tap out the little bit I have.
Yeah, and you like to eat, so that's not anything
like,
you need to be
it'd be like giving sleeping pills to a bear during fucking hibernation. You know what I mean? Like, it's fucking called overkill, dude. It's overkill. And so, you know, I'm obviously due to injuries and having my body beat up so much. Anything that, you know, you think can help out, you know, try to avoid chemicals. I mean, I've damaged my liver enough over the years. If I could take something that's more holistic, you know, or a little bit more natural instead of ibuprofens and Loratabs every day. So I've been doing the CBD stuff. And then he talked about how they're going to put on a tournament. They're going to have a 4-man tournament. No, is it 4-man? 8-man. I know it's like a $30,000 prize. And then they asked if I'd join it. And I'm like, look, man, you know, I had basically a month off because of you know, Mrs. Mir's medical issues. Well, I don't think I'm in shape to go through 3 people, you know, right now. By the time October hits, maybe. But then, you know, knowing Robert, he's going to have nothing but fucking killers and murderers row, you know. So I talked to him about maybe just doing a single one-off match. So maybe just do a gi match. So I've never done a gi match since I've been a black belt.
Oh, okay.
Now, my last gi match was when I was a purple belt.
Now, where are they doing this? Do you know?
It'd be here in town. I don't know the facility yet. Maybe we could get Robbie on if we can fucking get his ass here.
Yeah.
To be here on air, maybe on our next taping Thursday or Friday, and have him come in and talk about it.
All right, we'll find out about that, and maybe we'll get the black belt CBD folks to stop by, because I started using that too. You know,
really,
just doing Went to Warrior. Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Do you think it's helping at all?
I think so. I mean, so far my main issues have been in this training camp was my left shoulder's been irritating me, and my neck. God Almighty,
That's just, if you're a grappler, an MMA fighter, do you not see me how often I'm pushing on my head?
I know.
It's getting less though, because actually I'm starting to get some feeling back in my hand because my arm had gone numb there for a couple months.
Yeah,
and between seeing the therapist, it started coming back. But I noticed that in the last week, and I've been taking the CBD oil now for about 3 weeks. I feel like it's like kind of like I'm always on ibuprofen. You know what I mean? Like that kind of feeling of that anti-inflammation.
Now, are you doing the topical, like the drops, or is this okay?
So I do the topical after I train, after I shower. I'll rub it on my neck.
Yeah.
I do my shoulders, my quads, my lower back. Yeah.
Huh.
And then I do the droplets. I do them in morning and night.
Okay.
I take they gave me a little tincture. That's the word I'm using.
That's what I've got.
Yeah, and so I put there says like 1 or 2 drops. I fill the whole thing up.
Okay.
If 1 works, 2 works better.
And you just put it on your tongue?
Yeah, I just spray it in my mouth before I go to bed at night, and then when I first wake up in the morning, because in the morning is usually my whole vitamin routine where I take everything.
Yeah.
And so that's when I do it then too.
Yeah.
It says it helps lower blood pressure, anxiety.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I need to, I'm going to stick with it and see how it does. Cause I got like, I mean, you know, I've doing jiu-jitsu and stuff, you know, I mean, your neck gets sore and you know, that kind of, but this, it's like Do
you have the tingling in your hands yet?
No, not yet. I got that to look forward to. It's like I'm waking up now, not every morning, but some mornings I'm waking up and it's like before I even realize I'm awake, it's like I'm just kind of, like I just kind of got a moan going. You know what I mean?
Were you there? What was it Monday morning or was it last Friday morning?
Syndicate?
At Syndicate.
I was there yesterday. Is that what you mean?
With me and Pyle and James.
Oh yeah. I was there.
We were all making the jokes about our bodies. Yeah.
Yeah. Mike Pyle was saying how, in fact, he was the one who pointed it out that you were trying to demonstrate something.
So James Horn had this new choke from Side Control when he's on bottom, where he kind of grabs his own ankle and he puts his forearm on your neck and then he triangles his own legs. Takes a decent amount of flexibility, but not crazy. I mean, if you can do rubber guards, you can do this choke. So he goes to put it on me, and as he's doing it, I'm like, my shoulder, man, my shoulder. No, you know, I feel too much pressure on my shoulder. Hold on. So I look over. I'm like, hey, Mikey, Pyle, come over here. So Mike Pyle, who's UFC veteran, black belt jiu-jitsu. He's 43 years old, been training and also do his whole life martial arts. He comes over like, hey, can you be a partner to demonstrate? Cool. So he goes to lay down on top of James. James goes to hook it. He goes, no, man. Yeah. You're putting any pressure on my neck? No, not my neck, not my neck. So he bows out now. He's like, no, you can't. Don't grab my neck. So I'm like, hey, John, will you come over? So then John comes over, Wood, to go ahead, and he puts his hand and goes, oh, fuck. He's basically, because he holds pads so much, he's fractured his wrist when he was holding for Ngannou. Go figure, right? Francis Ngannou breaks his fucking hand while he's holding the mitts. But because he's a trainer, he can't take time to get surgery to fix it. So he just keeps fucking wrapping it up. So his hand's all wrapped up, and he's taking CBD and ibuprofens like they're going out of style. So he goes to put his hand on the mat. So then we're sitting there. I'm holding my shoulder. Fucking Pyle's holding his neck. Wood's holding his wrist. And I'm looking there, and there's a bunch of young guys like Corey there. And I'm like, you guys want to be fighters, huh? Welcome to your future.
I know. We were having a little conversation off to the side, me and Mike Pyle, because we told each other happy birthday because we had the same birthday. And so, but he's 5 years younger than me. So he was asking, he's like, where are you at now? And I told him, yeah, I'm catching up. And then he goes, how are you holding up? Like, are you starting to, and he starts comparing all these things. He goes, yeah, I notice now, like when I get out of bed, I start cracking and popping.
Yeah.
And yeah.
He was asking that because that was the one thing that he was like, I told him, you're better off than me. He says he can't sneak up on his wife because he gets out, he goes, you can hear her cracking. I'm all, I can't sneak up on her because I can't move. I look like fucking Frankenstein when I first wake up. I have to belly down, right? Because I kind of sleep on my side.
Yeah.
And so what I do is that when it's time for me to wake up, I go belly down, and then I slide my legs off the bed, and then my feet touch the ground, and I wait there for about a minute or two. Then I kind of do like a backwards push up and push myself up, and then my hands go to my knees, and then I kind of squat for a second. And then I like, okay, now it's time to start going pee. And then I start walking with my hands on my knees still. And then I start shoveling. And usually, because my left leg is even more screwed up than my right. So it's kind of like this one-legged like drag thing where I'm like kind of walking forward and dragging the other leg. By the time I piss and come back, I'm a little bit okay.
You getting out of bed, the first time I saw you get out of bed was like, there's a whole pregame to it. It's like there's a couple of dry runs before there's an actual.
If I have time and I wake up without an alarm,
Yeah.
I actually have a whole stretch routine I do from what's his name, Diamond Dallas Page, where he puts the knees and does it. It actually helps. But I mean, most of the time I'm waking up at, I got to be out of bed by 6:30 because of the kids and stuff. And I'm not a natural morning person, so I mean, I've gotten better as I've gotten older. If you don't set an alarm now on the weekends, I'll wake up at 9. That's me now, but 6:30, I'll never. If I wake up at 6:30, it's because an alarm went off.
Yeah, we got to get DDP back on the show soon. Speaking of yoga, because now I need it bad too. So we need to get him on to get him. We'll get him involved in both of our camps since they're heading in the same.
He's invited us. So we have an open invitation to go to his house, man.
We got to go train.
If you ever want a week to go there, let me know.
We need to do that. We need to go to Atlanta and heal up with Diamond Dallas Page.
Because he doesn't eat plant-based. Does he eat like more?
No, he's vegan.
Oh, he is a vegan. Oh, okay. I know that he's big on the diet too. I just didn't remember.
Yep. In fact, his yoga app, has a whole cooking side to it.
I saw that where he goes in the kitchen.
Stuff.
He has, okay.
Yeah. You know what's crazy is I got to find out now that, no.
He looks good for his age. Before we go further. Mike Pyle looks good for his age.
Oh, yeah, he does.
If you told me he's 43, he's aging well. Like, as a kid, I don't remember 43-year-olds looking like him.
They just always look like your dad.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have, I don't think he has much of any gray hair. Dude still has a six-pack. He's, you know what I mean? Built like, he looks like he's ready to jump on a surfboard at any moment and he's ready to go,
He may be, it would be an interesting conversation sometime. I'd have to think about it. But, like, what the ideal weight class would be, natural weight class for aging, because a welterweight is a pretty good weight class to age at, because you're not super heavyweight, but the other thing is you're not so small that you don't have, a lot of times those guys can expand and they don't have a lot of room to go up. You know what I mean?
I told you I was reading that Blue Zone thing in the National Geographic, and one of the things it talked about was having a medium build. Being built medium is better for living a longer life. You don't see a lot of centenarians that are well over north of 200 pounds. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that if you're 6'8", and 240, you're not going to live a long time. I'm just saying that statistically, you're probably not going to have as many of those. I mean, I guess you can always have the argument that you don't have as many of those people to start off with.
Yeah.
But I think relative to the percentage that they come from, for every 100 6'8" guys, for every 170 pound 5'10" guys, more of the 5'10", 170 pound guys are alive.
Well, let's talk some fights. Bellator has, boy, I mean, just saying it's a big card would be an understatement this coming weekend for a number of reasons. But first and foremost is the champion versus champion fight that tops the bill on Saturday night, Bellator 206. Gegard Mousasi, 44-6-2 MMA record, taking on Rory McDonald, 20-4 MMA record. Both of these guys have gone 2-0 since they debuted in Bellator. Mousasi will be the bigger fighter going into the fight, Frank, but that being said, I mean, they're both long, lanky guys. This is a hard fight to break down, in my opinion. I mean, in terms of, I think there's significant attributes for both guys. Mousasi is right now an odds-on favorite by a little. But, you know, when you think about Mousasi's, obviously the first thing that comes to mind is his European striking ability, but you know, he's also got a solid ground game. McDonald, you know, is a well-rounded MMA athlete, has the ability to take fighters down, but you know, is Mousasi going to be able to neutralize McDonald's takedowns? There's a lot to look at in this fight. Yeah. What do you think?
I am a little bit more leaning towards Mousasi in this fight, and the reason being is directly actually more or less because of how the last fight between McDonald and Lima went. Lima is not a good of a kicker, I think, as Mousasi, and he really was destroying McDonald's legs. It was to a point there, it looked like McDonald wasn't going to survive. If you remember, like at one point he got kicked in the leg. I thought they were going to have to stop the fight. But then Roy was able to get takedowns, and I think that he will be able to take down Gegard also. I think that he's just very good long limb clinch, and he's also very good with the striking with his hands. He has a long jab, a long cross, so you have to be very wary of his his striking with his takedowns. So I think he will get Gegard down, but the difference is that once Lima was down on the ground, he just turned into a jiu-jitsu guy. He just fought with sweeps and submissions. He didn't really make an attempt to get back up, so that really allowed Rory to recover and stay on top and smother him. You know, just avoid the submissions, avoid the sweeps. You know, it's something I coach all the time. And that's something that I did early in my career. It's something I acquired later on in life. Is that when you're on bottom, you have to be doing three things at all times if you want the guard to work. You have to be trying to sweep the guy, trying to submit the guy, and trying to scramble back up to your feet. If you don't scramble to your feet and you just play guard, you've eliminated one aspect of what the guy has to do. Now there's no reason for that individual to drive forward. Well, why do I drive forward? I don't have to hold you down. You're going to stay here. In fact, why would I drive forward and get swept or get stuck in a choke? I'm going to stay in this neutral ground, control your hips, and beat the shit out of you. And that's what Rory's very good at. Coming in either the TriStar gym, they're very good at being inside the guard. The only way to nullify that type of approach to the guard is to stand up, to get back up to your feet, which Gegard is very good at doing. He has a good ground game, but he's not keen to stay on his back. He'll go for submissions there. He's very adept at, if you leave an arm out, he's capable of taking it, but he's also very slippery and get back up to his feet. So I think that's the element of him getting back up to his feet after he causes damage, where Rory's not going to be able to rest on top of him as he was against Lima. That I think that's going to be the difference over a 5-round fight. Yeah,
that makes sense. It's, you know, I like the fact that Bellator, I think we talked about this when this fight was made. I like the fact that Bellator is going right to this. You know, I think there were some that said maybe too early to be making champion versus champion fights, especially when we talk about all the blue chip free agents that have signed with Bellator. Mousasi and McDonald are really two of the biggest success stories thus far. That, well, you know, how about more of a slow build up to this, and you start, you know, I think
the same narrative we have with
strike while the
Fedor.
iron's hot. Yeah,
when everybody said that when I was lined up first to fight Fedor in the heavyweight tournament.
Yeah.
You know, why have Mir and Fedor fight each other? Wouldn't it be cool if they were on opposite ends of the bracket and, you know, worked their way up? And I fielded that question many times over. And here's the truth of the matter. At this level of fighting, there's no guarantee that even Gegard Mousasi in the middleweight tournament, there's no guarantee that he's in the finals. Mm-hmm. It just look, fighting at MMA is fighting. There's a lot of ways to win. There's a lot of ways to lose, you know? And so when you have all those different factors going on, it's not as easy to match up and sit there and go, okay, well, this guy for sure will be here and beat this guy. Really, I mean, every time we think that, all of a sudden, you know, look what happens. I mean, we thought for sure Holly Holmes was going to get smoked by Ronda Rousey, right? Didn't happen, you know. We can go through the list. Remember when Matt Serra won the Ultimate Fighter, came off of it, gets to fight Georges St. Pierre, and all of a sudden, I mean, that was one of the biggest underdog stories that I've ever heard of. And then, boom, one knockout punch later and a ground and pound TKO. Now we have a new welterweight champion. So, I mean, you can't get much more of a mismatch than that. And there it happened, you know, lightning struck. And so, you know, boxing, because of the rule system, and they have a 3-round, you know, in most of them, they have a 3 knockdown. So you can get stunned with a shot. I mean, think about it. If boxing had the same rule set that MMA has, Klitschko would still be the heavyweight champ. Anthony Joshua wouldn't. Yeah. Because Anthony Joshua got dropped in the 6th. But he was able to recover, get up, and keep on fighting, right? He got a standing 8 count. Yeah. MMA, man, those flash knockdowns, you cover a guy, boom, it's over with. So I think they have to, like you said, Gegard Mousasi and putting Rory McDonald, put the champions, it makes sense because it's the only way you guarantee that these two are facing each other is to go ahead and match them up in the first round. Yeah, you do it now. You don't wait. And the other thing I think Bellator is doing very right on this card is they've got 3 distinct narratives going on in 3 separate fights. They've got this one that we just talked about, which is a super fight, but for the middleweight title. So maybe McDonald takes the middleweight title too, and then he's got to go right back down to welterweight because he's got got this tournament playing out. I don't know, maybe he tries to defend it once before while we wait for the welterweight title to play out, and the welterweight tournament is kicking off on this card. Now, we'll talk about that in a second, but the co-main event is Rampage Jackson and Vanderlei Silva fighting for the 4th time. Now, you know, if you're going to do this kind of fight, which at this point is a legends fight, right? They're doing, in my opinion, exactly the right thing by having at the top of the card a very relevant 2 fighters in their prime fight. They're not building a card on Vanderlei and Rampage. If Vanderlei and Rampage were the main event and there wasn't a lot of other compelling things going on the undercard. I'm sorry, man. This whole time did I talk about the narrative that they're in the middleweight tournament? Yeah. I get punched that way too much. Yeah. Well, they're kicking off the welterweight tournament with them fighting. Yeah. Exactly. But, yeah, way to catch yourself. That's all right. Yeah, man. I just realized I went on a rant and just. Well, I knew what you meant. But Rampage and Vanderlei fighting, you know, this is the kind of thing where Bellator has signed some fighters like this that are still very popular. You know, the people are always going to watch them fight, probably pretty much as long as they're fighting. And I think this is the perfect spot for these types of guys to go. Co-main, fine. I mean, you know, people want to see them match up for the 4th time, but it's not the whole thing that the card is built on. Does that make sense? Totally makes sense. I think that, you know, they're a set commodity, but they're not the future. They're, you know, right. It's a homage to the past, and I think that a lot of the hardcore fans are going to enjoy the fight. I myself am interested in watching it, but you have to build up what the future of the sport is. I mean, you know, neither one of these guys is going to be here 3, 4, 5 years down the path. It has to be the new guard taking over. So I think that, like you've said before, the expression used, like you come for and then you stay for. You know, this is exactly it. You might come for the Jackson Silva fight, but then you get to stay for some of the newer guys on the card that you get introduced to. Right. Now, the history between Vanderlei and Rampage is rich. They fought twice in Pride before they came over to the UFC. Vanderlei Silva won both of those fights via knockout, and then Rampage eventually returned the favor, knocking out Vanderlei Silva
in the UFC at UFC 92 back in 2008. So neither one of these guys, these guys have not fought each other for 10 years. We're 10 years removed from their last fight. Interesting, this is one of those rare examples of guys who've had a trilogy of fights where the same guy lost the first 2 fights. You don't often see that, let alone a 4th fight between the two.
This is the first 4th fight that I've heard of.
Good question. Is there another
I'm sure
one?
There is. I can't.
But a marquee fight. I mean, something people would remember. I don't think so. This might be the first one. Anyway, a heavyweight fight, though. Guys showing their age a little bit. Rampage fought as a heavyweight against Chael Sonnen. Chael defeated him in the first round of the Bellator heavyweight tournament. But that's a big weight for Vanderlei to be fighting at.
Yeah, I think Vanderlei will be smart, though. He's not going to come in. I think Vanderlei walks around at 230 before he cuts weight.
Yeah.
So that's still his in-shape fight weight. I'm hoping, and really honestly, if you ask me who's going to win the fight, I'm going to say the same thing I said with the Chael Sonnen fight. I'll wait till the day of the weigh-ins. If Quinton Jackson shows up at 250 plus, he's not winning. Has a slimmer chance of winning. If he shows up at 2 1/4 lean, then I think he has a strong chance to win the fight. He'll be able to throw punches and move, and he's very well rounded, and he still has a left hook like a monster. Knocks down a building. But as you saw in the Chael Sonnen fight, when he's super heavy, he's trigger shy, and trigger shy against Chael, you get taken down and smothered. Trigger shy against Vanderlei, you get put in the hospital.
Yeah. I think this fight stays on its feet, and it's going to be a question of who knocks who out.
Yeah, but again, Jackson even looked slow when he was 250. So. And Vanderlei's quick. He's always been explosive, fast hands. He'll throw a 6-pinch combination and throws a flurry of hard punches fast. So I think if Rampage's weight is too heavy, I think he's going to be a sitting duck. I don't know if he's going to be able to get out of the way of Vanderlei's speed and power. And, and I don't know if he's willing to shoot on him, if he's willing to take him down.
See, I don't think he's going to be willing to do that just based on what he's preferred to do. And, gosh, I mean, I don't know how far back I'd have to go with Rampage fights to see, because that's just he seems like he has always been committed to standing. I mean, that's Vanderlei style anyway, but Rampage, it seems like for years now we've talked about the fact that, Rampage could take him down. Rampage could wrestle, but he doesn't seem to really want to do that one way or another.
He does have a good wrestling background. I mean, wrestling at a junior college level, I think more of his conduct outside and off the mat probably kept him from wrestling at higher levels. But I mean, talking to guys that train with him, I've talked to Herb Dean, who trained with him a lot in the past, and he tells me to this day that pound for pound, Rampage has one of the strongest backs of anybody. He says that you put him in a guillotine, he goes, he could stand up on anybody. Just his ability to straighten his hips out and pick people up, he goes, is ungodly. He goes. He just God-given just ability to deadlift, his ability to straighten out, which you've seen in his fights in the past. People put him in arm bars and he has no problem from the guard picking people right up off the ground that weigh 200 pounds plus and slamming them down. He won many fights that way. I remember a highlight reel knockout of Ricardo Arona. Tried putting him, I think, in a triangle, and all of a sudden, boom, one body slam later, Arona's asleep. So he is capable of, with a mean double or a single, of elevating people, and he has the technical knowledge. It's just that he's fallen in love with boxing, and he's had a lot of success with it. I mean, their last matchup, if I remember correctly, he knocked out Vanderlei with a left hook. So he has, if he can catch Vanderlei, but that fight happened at 205, so he was quick and he was in shape. Rampage being heavy, he gains nothing, because at 220, what he'll be usually the day after a weigh-in, he's still strong as all hell, but now he's quick and he's in shape. When he's 250, he didn't gain that much in strength.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, it's kind of like just, you're already so abundantly strong, a little bit extra is not helping him. But what he loses in speed and conditioning, I think, is really detrimental to him.
The feature bout of the evening, speaking of that welterweight tournament kicking off, is Douglas Lima taking on Andrei Koreshkov. And just like Bellator kicked off their heavyweight tournament a few months back with you and 7 other dudes, Frank, they're doing the same thing for the welterweight title as well. Now, speaking of, we were just talking about a quartet fight, but trilogy fight. That's what this is going to be between Douglas Lima and Andrei Koreshkov. This is the 3rd time that these guys have fought. They split the first 2, and you get a couple of stand-up fighters here. Now, Lima, wasn't it Lima that we were on the elevator with at your fight against Fedor, and we were both talking about how big he was for a welterweight? Yeah.
I think he was my height, right? He's because I'm
6'1",
not quite
6'1".
6'3". I'm like 6'2" and a half.
Yeah. So you're probably an inch taller than him. More
I mean, I don't know. I felt like we were almost exactly the same height. Yeah. And then shoulder width and everything. Like, I looked over at him, I'm like, Jesus, you make me feel like I should be a middleweight. If you're able to make welterweight, like, it blew my mind, his frame, how big he is.
Yep. This fight is, probably not getting quite the attention it would get otherwise if it wasn't underneath Musasi McDonald and Rampage Silva. But this is going to be the kickoff to their welterweight tournament, and then Aaron Pico is returning after his initial hiccup debut in Bellator, now at 3-1. So he'll be back in featherweight action as well. Now, this fight is going to stream, this whole fight card is going to stream exclusively on the DAZN app. If you've seen chatter about the DAZN app, that's DAZN, DAZN. We had Bellator president Scott Coker on here a couple months back. He had, I think, he just signed the DAZN deal, and we're talking about it. So what is it? Well, it's not Fight Pass in the sense that it's not something that Bellator owns. It's a third-party company. But what they do is have a $10 a month platform, just like Fight Pass has, for mixed martial arts and boxing. There's some other sports on there as well, but that's for our purposes of conversation, combat sports. I used it this past weekend for the first time to watch the Anthony Joshua Alexander Povetkin boxing match. Stream worked great without a hitch, and now they're going to be doing stuff with Bellator. Now, I think they've already streamed some non-exclusive Bellator cards, if I'm not mistaken, but this is going to be the first one that's exclusively on DAZN, so you can't get it on Paramount Network. And again, we kind of put on our promoters' hats for a second and talk about the wisdom of doing something like that, because on the one hand, you could look at it and go, gosh, is this the right thing for Bellator to do, because this is such a big card? Do they want this to not be seen on the Paramount Network and benefit from the ratings? Do they want to put this immediately on a pay platform, even though it's $10 a month? But the more I thought about it, I thought, no, this is the right thing to do, because if you want people to try the DAZN app, and especially because they get a 30-day free trial, you got to come with something big. I mean, I think you've got to come with as close to a pay-per-view quality card as you possibly can. So I think this one does make sense to really come big with, to try to get people to check out that app. I
agree. I mean, anytime you come out of the, it's your introductory, when it's your, what's the word I'm looking for, freshman or your debut.
Yeah.
Or,
yeah, your debut.
Yeah, you have to come out hard. That's when you have the most opportunities to turn people on. It's your first appearance, your first impression.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and any more apps are, I don't know how you guys do it in your house, but any more apps for me, like I haven't had proper cable or satellite in a number of years now.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
It's probably been 2 years since we finally just have Cox cable, but we only do the internet.
That's what we do.
Because then everything runs off of that.
Yeah, it's
Netflix,
all,
Apple TV, iTunes.
It's all a la carte.
Yep.
Yeah, you can basically just pick and choose what you want. And, it totally eliminates all of the ground clutter of, all the channels you don't watch. Okay, here's a little demo of DAZN. Again, that's DAZN. There's been a lot of talk about how you pronounce that. In fact, they even did a little tutorial on it before the Anthony Joshua fight with a bunch of people pronouncing it. I think that's the way the kids do it anymore. The kids don't like the letter T. They've eliminated it completely, and they just go with duh. You know, like the podcast. It's not the podcast. It's the podcast. Yeah.
Shit, I wonder how I say
The kids
it.
or the super fans?
The kids, you know, and trying to stay young and relevant. All right, so that'll be this weekend. Shall we throw it to Porno Mikey for the news?
Yeah, absolutely.
Frank, what do you say? All right, now, before Mikey gets into his headlines, Mikey's got a big couple of weeks on his hands here because, as I mentioned earlier, he's getting married on October 6th. So he had these awesome wedding invitations he gave us that have him and his fiance and Pinky, their pit bull. But since the wedding invitations have gone out, there's another pit bull addition to the house, right? You got Kona.
Kona, yep, another adopted pit. She's pit and Boston Terrier, we believe.
Yeah, and those two seem to get along great.
They do, yeah.
They
so
wrestle and play.
They do that all the time. Yeah.
Will they both do they have roles in the wedding? Are they like ring bearer and flower girl or something?
No, they do not, because we're at Mount Charleston, so there's a lot of wildlife, potential wildlife, and if there's a rabbit, squirrel, deer, Pinky and Kona both are liable to.
They could lose focus.
They could definitely lose focus. So
okay,
they'll be kenneled in the hotel.
So the wedding's going to be up there. I, as I said, have this previous engagement with the Foo Fighters, but miraculously, Frank, between all of his grappling and MMA fights and international travel, has found a way to be there and making me feel like a dick. So Frank will be
Not
there.
many times I get to make you feel like the ass.
I know.
I got to take advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, how are all the plans going so far?
We're good. Everybody's paid.
Mm-hmm.
We had to go through a few officiants, but we're good.
Why?
Well, one lady double booked herself. And then one guy, his vows that he sent us, we sent him a script. It was like, here, read this, file our paperwork, and get the fuck out of there.
Can I ask a question? Are you particularly religious?
No, we're both atheists.
Okay, so this is not a religious ceremony. Okay.
And so this guy was like, that's it? That's pretty short. I really like to surprise you guys on the day of. And when we said, no, we're both vehemently against surprises. And he said, well, here's kind of whatever. And his vows were super creepy. It was like, I stand here with my willing body, like, thoughts like mind and heart purged of all others, and I'm like that, and we're just like I'm not reading that. So we sort of kept him on the hook, and then we found this other guy. So
I don't get that. If that's your job is to officiate someone's wedding, and they just make it as easy as I want you to say this. Cool, that's what you want.
Yeah,
fuck it. It's your wedding. You're paying me.
I wrote him a script. You know, I have my screenwriting podcast, so I wrote it out.
Yeah,
it's legitimately a script. You know, the beats, everything that are walking down. When he pauses, when I say stuff, when we repeat, it was
dude, you did his job for him.
I did his job for him because the other lady, I'm like, okay,
and he wasn't willing to play with that.
And I was like, let's not mess this up. He wanted his like creative process in there. I'm like, nope. So we're going with old man Bob, and as long as knock on wood, he's still alive. October 6th, he's gonna do our thing. We got a little nervous. Hopefully he's not.
How much do ministers get paid?
This guy is $175 because it's extra because it's up there at the mountain, so it's a little extra gas. But both other people were $150, so $150, $175.
Hey, if you and Jen ever decide to finally get married, can I get ordained and be like an official and do the wedding?
Sure.
There you go.
Yeah, we could do that, no problem. In fact, when I don't know if I think I've
cool
talked
to marry people.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I've told you the story or not, but when I was married, because I've been married before, I don't even know if I've explained that on the podcast or not, but I was married for 7 years, I guess. When I got married, my wedding was officiated by Dan Haggerty, best known as TV's Grizzly Adams. Does anyone remember Grizzly Adams? Yeah. So you want to talk about a guy not having a script, and we just let him riff. Everything went smoothly with the wedding, except when they had to go find Dan at the bar before the wedding, and he was already half in the bag. And I just remember coming down the aisle, and he was basically kind of doing like a stream of consciousness open mic routine up there, and we all stood there for a good 7 or 8 minutes before he actually got to that part of it. But that's kind of what we were looking for. So yeah, absolutely,
unique experience. Well, actually, you do have such a colorful cast of friends. I'll say that I can be one of the individuals you can choose from, because there might be some much more colorful, interesting.
You would have had fun at that. You and I didn't know each other then, but you would have had a lot of fun being around. You would have definitely been one of the groomsmen, and you would have been really amused by the other folks that would have been in your company. Chan from Blues Traveler, he was my best man, and Joe Francis, the creator of Girls Gone Wild, was a groomsman as well. In fact, he flew the Girls Gone Wild jet into the wedding, and that was quite a spectacle when the big Gulfstream jet landed right on the field not too far from where the wedding was. But anyway, we'll try to do better the second time around if that happens.
Okay.
All right. Speaking of a guy whose marriage may not be going so well these days because he's got a lot of explaining to do, Mikey, tell us what happened with Bill Cosby.
Bill Cosby was officially sentenced. He got 3 to 10 for drugging and sexually assaulting Andrea Constead. Basically, I think he's going to appeal.
Look at that mugshot.
Yeah, and
he's blind now, right?
Yeah. Legally blind. Mm-hmm. 81 years old.
And basically his lawyer, that's the thing, his lawyers are like, listen, like, he's 81 years old, he's blind, like, what the heck's he going to do in jail? And, and other people, obviously the victim is saying, like, well, I mean, you have to hold him accountable, because then where do you draw the line? Like, if someone's, like, 74, and, are they,
Yeah, no, I mean,
you gotta do something, and
Well, it can't be basically a reward for evading justice to be let off the hook. I mean, I get you take some of that stuff into consideration, but it is. I think there's part of it, Frank, that you have to look at and go, well, we still have to judge you at least in part by the age that you were when you did the crime. I mean, just because you got away with it. Do you think so or no?
I don't know. I think it's a complicated subject because, I mean, we're so much into not doing any cruel or unusual punishment. And obviously, this guy can't be in general population.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's going to state prison. That's real prison.
Yeah, so he has to be basically in the security housing unit. You know what I mean? Like, so he has to be sequestered away from the general population. I think that at the very least goes without saying. I mean, this guy can't. Come on, Bill Cosby, any 81-year-old blind guy who's there for sexually assaulting women. In general population is probably not going to do very well. I think. I mean, how do you protect him from the other prisoners that want to be famous? I mean, you kick his ass, you're fucking on TMZ. You know, and so the guy can't fucking defend himself. He can't even fucking see. I mean, even if it was a healthy guy and he's with some of the disabilities he has, if he was young, he's screwed. But then you add the fact that he's old and he's blind and just. I mean, shit, man. I mean, I'm not excusing what he did, and he was able to, obviously justice was a long time coming, but do I think there are going to be special considerations made in his punishment? Yeah.
What an incredible fall. Like, I mean, there's been big falls from grace before, but I am hard pressed to think of an example of
a more beloved guy.
That's what I'm saying. And who
I grew up watching the Cosby Show, man. That was the dad. You know what I mean? Like that.
Right. Richer than rich, placed a high priority on education. Yeah. Never had, to anyone's knowledge, some sort of seedy social life. Of course, turns out this Jekyll and Hyde situation. But you just think about the way that everything was set up and perceived with this guy compared to what was going on. Because the other thing is, too, I mean, this was one woman's charges, but what were we up to, 50? Or, I mean, there was some crazy number. I
think
the part of me that doesn't feel bad for him is that he had a means to scratch that itch. You know what I mean? If he wanted to have sex with multiple women, you're fucking rich and famous, dude. You know what I mean? Like, there's women that you can, you know what I mean? Like, you have access and you're in Hollywood. He could have been banging the most beautiful girls in the world willingly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
but it wasn't. It couldn't have been about just sex.
No, so that's the part.
And that's it.
So him wanting to victimize girls that don't.
Yeah,
that's the part. I don't get that part.
I don't
man.
either.
Like, I'm just not wired like that.
I don't like it when I have sex with girls and they appear to be dead.
Well, like you and I, we've had
women.
this conversation. The reason why, I know that I could never rape somebody is because I don't want to have sex with anybody that doesn't want to have sex with me.
No.
Like, I mean, that's, I think, most of the turn on is that the girl wants to bang you. You know what I mean? Like, oh, wow, you're enjoying it. Like, in fact, if I had sex with a girl and she wasn't enjoying it, I don't know if I could stay hard. Like, if I really understood that, like, wow, you're really not into this, are you?
Yeah.
Like, I would probably go flaccid. You know what I mean? Like, it just, that would be like, wow, well, fuck. You know
You
what I mean?
would probably look to Herb Dean at that point to stand you up.
Yeah, right. I'm all, can we get a redo?
See what I did there? That was an MMA joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know,
because we're an MMA podcast.
we brought it around. But you know what I'm saying? Like, so, I mean, to sit there and bang some half-conscious girl that doesn't want to be there and in between her conscious fucking, she's kind of half resisting. I'm all, fucking, there's something wrong with you, man. You know what I mean? Like,
I agree. Speaking of willingly banging girls, before you get to your next headline, Mikey brought us presents, Frank. One for you, one for me. What'd you get here, Mikey?
It's a Naughty America beer cozy.
Yeah, this is Naughty America, which these days is one of the bigger porn companies, I guess, right?
One of the last independent porn companies too, not under the Pornhub wing.
Okay.
So they're hanging on. But yeah, my boss came back into town and he cleared out his storage unit. Oh. And he had these. Like, you want these? I'm like, yeah, sure. So
well, tell him thank you.
Yeah, I know a couple
it's
guys.
It's a coffee cozy for you.
Yeah, that's right. Put mine in it right now. Well, it's very nice.
Yeah.
Tell him thank you, and thank you as well, Mikey.
No, I will. And one thing back to Frank, when talking about you won't have sex with a girl who doesn't like it. One thing, we actually had a girl who was closing her eyes, and I don't think that she like didn't want to be there. I mean, more than it was work and everything, and we had to tell her like, yo, when you close your eyes and like lean back like that, even if you're really enjoying it on camera, it looks like you're going like, it looks like you don't want to be there.
Right.
So you have to either look back at the penetration or at the guy. Like you can't look away, and you can't like close your eyes is a big thing. You got to
tough decision. Yeah. I wouldn't want to look at the penetration or the guy. I don't know where I would look.
I don't know. I think it's a sexual turn on when you're with a girl that wants it even more than you do. Yeah. I mean, like she wants you. Like I think that's very attractive to me. Like,
sure.
Me chasing, like, I mean, like honestly, like I might not have any game because if I show an interest in a girl and she sits there and goes, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, obviously I'm talking about my past. But, when I was younger and I would show an interest towards a woman, if for whatever reason, if she was just like, meh, okay, done, shut down. Like, if you were wanting to play hard to get and you wanted me to jump through hoops to prove that I liked you, I was never your guy. Because to me, I'm like, well, one, why are we playing fucking bullshit games? And two, I'm like, hey, like that just kind of crosses weird lines, which I think people are starting to see nowadays. The playing hard to get, it really depends. Because if the girl likes you and you're a hot guy, then that's, oh, look, he's romantic, he's persistent, you know what I mean? If she really doesn't like you, you're a creepy fucking stalker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how do I know the difference between that I happen to be your hot guy or I'm your stalker?
Yeah. Well, I don't mind a courtship, but I have to know from the beginning that you're interested.
Right. No, I don't mean you have to fucking let down the walls and, right off the bat, but I'm saying there has to be some reciprocating of, give me a hint that, yes, these advances are warranted. That you want me to keep advancing. You don't have to, you don't have to spell it out in a fucking neon sign. But if you flat out tell me, no, I'm not interested, And then, you know, a month later, you're like, well, how come you didn't call me anymore? I'm like, what the fuck you talking about? You told me you weren't interested. Oh, well, come on. You gotta try harder than that. I'm like, fuck you, try harder than that. You know what I mean? Like, this is when you start getting fucking rape charges, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I would have to, in fact, I think I would probably, I've been inclined to even err on the other side of that caution, which is like, I think you're like, are you liking me? You like, I'm going to make sure I'm reading this right. Like, there's not even an air of assumption on it. You know, I kind of sometimes, yeah.
Well, the other thing that does suck about the Cosby thing is that I guess my idea of justice is that it protects society, right? Mm-hmm. So when you have somebody, when he was a victimizer, taking him off the streets and then possibly rehabilitating him and keeping him from being and causing future victims. So right now, in essence, all we're doing is punishing him because, I mean, I guess with Viagra and Cialis, he could still be a fucking, you know, predator. But I'm kind of willing to bet that guy's not out there fucking raping girls anymore. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I don't think the prison sentence is what's keeping him from doing it anymore. I think that he's just not physically really that dangerous anymore. You know, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's fucking playing possum, but I'm kind of thinking that right now, the idea of him adding victims to his list, even if he went free, is probably not very high.
Well, yeah.
I wish they would have nailed his ass back when he was 40 years old and there was 50 more girls he was going to fuck and got him then. You know, and that's the part about this. It's really the tragedy is that, like, yeah, he's going to get punished, but I mean, fuck, man.
He got to be free for a long time. He got to be free fucking longer than what most people live. Yeah. At this point, if he died tomorrow, he lived for 81 years unpunished, you know? I agree. Mikey?
Next up, Cody Wilson, famous for the, I think it's Defense Distributed, for releasing plans to make the 3D printed almost untraceable or virtually untraceable gun.
Yeah, this is the guy.
Untraceable or
because
undetectable, like through a metal detector because it's plastic.
It did say untraceable. Why would it say untraceable? Can you scroll down there? Sells the blueprints for untraceable 3D printed guns.
Well, I guess untraceable in the sense you could make it. I mean, if you could manufacture a gun in your house, it's untraceable unless you volunteer.
Yeah, there's no number on it. Yeah, because you buy a gun, there's a serial number on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, he got charged with, or got accused of paying a 16-year-old girl $500 to have sex with him in Austin, Texas. He was arrested in Taiwan and extradited back to the U.S. over the weekend, and he stepped down from his company, and which he basically created, which most people, and myself included until this article, didn't know it was anyone besides him. I didn't really know there were other people in there. He's basically the face of that, and then
I don't know, man. That kind of sucks because if you're buying a prostitute, you're probably not IDing her, and I'm willing to bet the 16-year-old girl probably didn't look. I mean, it wasn't like she was flat-chested with the fucking pigtails. You know what I mean? There's a lot of 16-year-old girls that look like they're 20. I'm not saying that's the case with him, but just right off the bat, that doesn't, to me, you know, doesn't scream pedophile. I know it's against the law, but if he knowingly has sex with a 16-year-old, but I mean, 16, I mean, that's you know, Jesus, you know, I mean, that's scary. I think that's scary for a young man. You know, if you're 21 years old and you're dating girls, and if she looks like she's below 21, it's like, fuck, you got to ID them. You know what I mean? Because you just don't know. And I'm sure she's not disclosing, not only am I having sex illegally, but by the way, I'm on an underage. Like, I probably wasn't brought up.
Well, first of all, you know where you don't have this problem is at the Alien Cat House. You need to, this is a great case for legal brothels, ladies and gentlemen, because
no diseases and no getting arrested for banging a young girl.
Every lady that we employ is licensed and has not only proof of age, but also a lack of a rap sheet, because otherwise she couldn't get the license to be a legal prostitute if she did have a criminal history like that, but I digress. Yeah, I mean, look, you have to be responsible for your own firearm at all times, and where you're pointing it and who you're shooting it at. But yeah, I mean, I get that maybe you don't somebody's not advertising they're underage, and maybe you don't get that. But see, that's the problem with getting into the whole criminal element of it to begin with.
No.
Because listen, if again, I mean, that was a shameless
He obviously
plug.
has the money to do it the right way, and the way he did it was the wrong way. And
well, you just
open your door up to that shit.
And it also shows a lack of regard for the law to begin with, because certainly one thing I think you would want to be, especially if you're the person behind a very controversial subject like this, is you would want to be law abiding, because you're basically trying to make the case. Hey, what are you worried about? This is what my technology is just going to make sure that all good guys have access to a gun, or whatever your argument's going to be. This is not a very good look for it, because
for him, he is a self-described crypto anarchist, and he said he never really was into guns. He's posting this on there as a First Amendment thing, because all he's doing is posting the plans, and he's basically saying if these can go through, anything can go through. Almost like Larry Flint, like, listen, if they'll protect me and my smut, then it's, because what he's going on is like he's sharing the information. It's like, is information protected under the First Amendment?
Sort of like the anarchist cookbook or whatever that thing's called, where it shows you how to build bombs.
Right, that kind of stuff. That's basically what his plan is. So I mean, I get your point, but he is also a self-described anarchist. So maybe he was living.
Well, on a separate separate plane from what he's charged with, I haven't seen very many defenders for the idea of a 3D printer plastic gun. I mean, you've got to be a very extreme. I mean, even like gun advocates, you'd have to be a real extremist for this.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the big picture and not trying to be like, well, the principle of it's the government, none of the government's business on what I have. In the big scheme of everything, I feel that this would probably be used more for malice and a detriment to society than to be a benefit for the freedom of an individual's rights. You know what I mean? If I have to sit there and go, what's more at risk here? Some fucking 16-year-old kid fucking printing this shit off and doing something stupid with it.
Or terrorism.
Yeah.
I mean, how about getting a plastic gun on an airplane, which you could do, because a metal detector isn't going to detect it.
Yeah.
And I believe at the last thing I heard, you have to have one metal piece in it, and also a bullet will send off the metal detector too.
Yeah, but hiding a bullet and getting it through in the metal detector,
that's
not as hard as you think.
Yeah, especially this. I think his is only
I've done it accidentally.
Yeah.
And
I've flown with bullets before.
Yeah.
And his is only a 22 as well, so still.
9mm.
So, and I think they do have to have one metal.
Yeah, I'm sure in the firing pin.
The firing pin is metal.
Yeah, and I think also too, from what I've seen, the actual where you would stick the round in has to also be metal.
The chamber.
The chamber. Yeah. Thank you.
I think
just because the explosion of the round, it still needs for the pressure.
Yeah.
The plastic can't hold that. So I've seen the plastic guns before.
Yeah.
And the firing pin and the chamber. There's a chamber where you slide the round in inside the plastic barrel that also is metallic.
And I think the big thing that he actually had major success with was magazine. Is 3D. So like, in California and New York, they banned
high capacity.
High capacity magazines. He had those plans on there for a long time, and those are actually extremely successful made. But yeah, stuff like that is. But yeah, it's
It just seems more like it's going to be a use for assholes more than it's going to be a good for the
sure.
good guys.
And listen, I mean, we as a society have learned through trial and error that there are plenty of examples where everybody's on board with regulation. Who doesn't like the idea of driver's licenses? I mean,
some of your hardcore libertarians will say that they don't believe in it. But
okay, but that's not smart. I mean, there's a reason why we figured out, okay, this is a good minimum age to drive a car. Driver's education is required. You've got to pass a test to get a license. There's a number of things like that we make decisions about. So.
But I agree with you. If you're in any way you're on the scope, if you're on the radar, and the government's looking to get your ass, you pay your taxes, fucking be above water. You got to keep your nose clean, you know, so to speak, because they're going to look for something. And here, nailed for a prostitution charge, and the girl's 16. Fuck, they're going to go after him for everything. Where, I don't personally, and again, I don't know the case, what the girl really looked like. But my initial instinct, if you'd have told me it was a 12-year-old girl, I'm like, oh, you're a sick fuck. You know what I mean? Like, I don't give a shit if she started to have breasts or not. She's fucking 12. You know what I mean? You can see a 12-year-old. You know what I mean? Like, there's something wrong with you, dude. A 16-year-old girl, like, I'm not saying that, it's okay. They're still mentally not really in the position to be having relationships, I feel. I have a daughter who's 15. She is nowhere near ready to be in that kind of relationship with a male. But physically, there are other girls at school. Like, I could see if one wanted to pass herself off as an adult and pretend she was 19, 20 years old. The guy that fell for it, I don't think's a sicko. He just didn't know.
Yep. No, that's like I said. If you're thinking of engaging in prostitution, do me a favor, hit me up, and we'll arrange a legal experience for you.
Yeah, the girl doesn't have diseases. That's just the way to go, dude.
Yeah, that's right.
The no disease thing is really my kicker.
Listen, disease, this sort of thing. Mikey and I were talking about before we got on
and
the
now
air.
No rape charges.
Well, that, and hey, how about you're not going to get robbed? How about a pimp isn't going to mug you?
The rape charges matter because, look, obviously there's been a lot of good coming about the Me Too movement and a lot of women coming out. But there's a lot of extreme cases now that I'm hearing where I'm looking at it going, yeah, I feel like that's kind of like we're reaching for shit, guys. You know what I mean? Like the Kavanaugh case.
All right, perfect segue. Actually, I think that was you had that on the agenda, right?
Okay, now.
Let's let Mikey get us up to date real quick on where this sits, because I know.
I got till 5 o'clock. Bella doesn't get out of football practice till then.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted him to set the stage because as we tape here in a couple of days, there's big developments in this case. What's the story, Mike?
After a long time of, or not a long time, I guess a week of back and forth, Kavanaugh's accuser will testify in an open hearing on Thursday.
This, of course, is the Supreme Court nominee who's in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee right now, awaiting a full vote from the Senate to see if he's going to be set on the Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh. And the allegation is what?
The allegation is that I believe it was in the early 80s, so we're looking at 35-plus years ago.
How old was he?
17.
He was 17 at a high school party. Him and one friend, last name is Judge. I forgot his first name offhand. And I had pulled up Mark Judge. Pulled up the original letter. This lady, who's now a statistics professor, were at a high school party in the early 80s, 35-plus years ago. Kavanaugh and Mark Judge pushed her into a bedroom, shut the door, and were basically jumping on top of her, trying to undress her. And then they sort of scuffled with each other, and she ran out and locked herself in a bathroom. Basically, I guess attempted rape would probably be what she was at. Nothing.
And she had sent this letter back in July to Dianne Feinstein, senator out of California. Feinstein sat on the letter because the woman had requested anonymity. And so they were already a ways through the Kavanaugh hearing before it was actually brought to light, I think because it was leaked. So initial thoughts, Frank?
I don't know, and I really just don't want to come off as insensitive here because I have a daughter. It seems kind of crazy that it took 35 years for someone to come up with, and then also too, she wasn't raped, wasn't touched, wasn't undressed, but like scuffling, and someone grabbed her like at a high school party. I don't know. It seems like it's if this guy wasn't trying to run for get the nomination for the Supreme Court, we wouldn't be hearing about this. It seems like someone's reaching for straws to try to basically disrail the Republicans from controlling the Supreme Court.
I think it's the kind of thing that, and I too would want to be very, very cautious about this. I mean, this is, and we've talked about this when everything started with the Me Too movement, a lot of important things coming out of that. But at the same time, as soon as I saw it, As soon as I saw that momentum happening, I thought, okay, very good. Very good that people like Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby are, being brought to account. But let's also be real careful, because for an opportunist, this is the kind of thing that could, almost like you can just sort of blend it in with the crowd of ne'er-do-wells and slip yours in there. So I've wanted to be careful with that. But here's what I'll say about the Kavanaugh situation. Now, he's not going to be brought up on rape charges. That's not what the burden is here. It's not whether or not he can be prosecuted.
It's character assassination.
But he is being nominated for a very high office, and it's basically in consideration of that. It's not whether or not there is no jury, there is no judge, other than the senators that have to vote for his confirmation one way or another. But I will say this. I think now she's going to testify. She's a professor now, this woman, his accuser, of Professor Ford. She is going to testify in front of the Judiciary Committee on Thursday, as is he. I think both of those things are good. I think she should be heard from. Now, the other thing is this. I think they should get the other guy, Mark Judge, under oath. Now, he has said that this didn't happen.
He said he doesn't remember the party at all.
Yeah, right. He said he didn't remember the party at all, and I think he also said something like, as long as he'd known Brett Kavanaugh, that was not indicative of any kind of behavior he would attribute to him. So fine, but go ahead and let's get under oath. Just come in front of the committee, say, not only I don't remember this party, I wouldn't do anything like that. Neither did he, because the thing is. Let's say, for the sake of argument, this is going to be Kavanaugh's defense. It already is, because he gave an interview about this last night. He said, listen, I don't doubt that at some point something like this may have happened to her, but it wasn't me. Like maybe it was mistaken identity. All right. Well, the thing is, if you get Mark Judge, the other person that she named as being an individual in the room, you get him under oath, and he says it wasn't me. Now it's not just one case of mistaken identity, it's 2 cases of mistaken identity. Okay, but let's just get all that on record. The problem that's happening right now, from a purely political standpoint, is you've got the Democrats certainly wanting to delay this.
There's an agenda.
Well, because there is a midterm election in November, so if you can delay it until past November, not only at this point is there a pretty real chance of the Republicans losing the House of Representatives. At this point, they might lose the Senate too. That's going to be tougher. But if they do, everything would turn around. Democrats would control Judiciary Committee, nominating processes, things like that. But just as quickly as there is an agenda from the Democrats, make no mistake, there's an agenda from the Republicans here as well. They're trying to hurry this thing through. In fact, Mitch McConnell used the very poor choice of words here, ram it through. He said the other day, we're going to ram this thing through, because they're trying to get to November. Let's get this guy on the court before. And what's lost in all of this, not only are the very serious accusations, but also the process. I mean, the Supreme Court has been politicized for a long time, but it wasn't always that way. And there used to be an emphasis placed on somebody being the best person for the job. And even if you already completely believed that they were, you still went through a process. Nobody was trying to ram things through, so to speak. And now you've got that happening. What I think is, and I'm not one of these, I'm not saying he's guilty, there's no way she's mistaken, this could possibly be a lie. I'm not saying any of that, because I haven't seen the proof of that. But what I believe, looking at it totally objectively, is that, number one, they should both have the opportunity to testify about it, which we're getting on Thursday. But also that third guy, that Mark Judge, should be, even if he's just going to show up and say, sorry, I can't help you, I raised my right hand, I have no idea what any of this is about, that's all I can say. Get him under oath and do that, and have the FBI, who is in charge of doing these background checks, go ahead and have them look at this. Now, they have looked at him up to this point, sure, and he's cleared those background checks, but this was before they knew about this. Go ahead, have them look at it. They don't render a verdict. The FBI doesn't say, we believe it or we don't. They just process the information.
Do we think something like that? Well, What are the two other accusations on? Real quick before I go any further. The other two accusers. There's three of them now.
Oh, right. Yeah. One of them. Go ahead.
So what are you asking?
There's two other accusers.
What are the other two saying happened?
Oh, the other two.
Was he pushy also, or did he rape him?
Yes,
Yeah,
pushy. There was no actual claim of sexual.
And this is all back high school, college years?
The next one was in college at Yale. But that woman, and there doesn't seem to be as much corroboration for that one in terms of, because one thing about this, about Dr. Ford is she, even though she was not public about this, she apparently told other people, over the years about it. There are other people who could be called as witnesses to say, yes, she told me about this and the details. I don't know that the other woman, I think her name is Ramirez, I don't believe she has, at least she hasn't volunteered that type of testimonial background.
Well, just to play on the other side of it,
sure.
Let's go and move the goalpost a little bit.
Yeah.
What if he was a pushy kid back in high school? I mean, we don't have anybody he's actually raped. Does the fact that he was a testosterone-fueled kid in high school, that a lot of guys, I mean, I've thought back to my history of girls that I've hooked up with when I was in high school, and I was kind of pushy. You know what I mean? Like, knowing what I know now as an adult and as a father, I definitely probably would have acted under some standards of today inappropriately. Where girls like
this?
Yeah, well, girls are saying no. I'm like, oh, come on, you want to, you want to, come on, I don't know if I want to.
But the physicality of it, would you have, and these are the allegations, but could you see yourself pushing a girl down on a bed?
No, I didn't
and
push
putting
any
your
girls
hand over her mouth so she couldn't scream?
No, never did that.
Okay, because that's kind of what we're talking about here.
Being very close up in their face, kissing on their neck, while they're like, well, I don't know, and then they go ahead and, okay, now kissing's appropriate, and then you try to reach for the breast, and they tell you no, and then you reach for their ass, and they say no, and you lift your hand up, and then you're persistent. You know what I mean? Like, every time they say no, it's like, okay, it's no now, but I'm going to try again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that I'm telling a story that a lot of guys probably couldn't relate to.
Boy, I mean, I would have to say that I couldn't identify that with that just in this sense. My reaction to, and forget, I'm not trying to draw a parallel analogy to this because I definitely wouldn't be in a scenario like what he's accused of, but just the idea of, I think a girl's interested in me and we're kind of doing that dance, the courtship or whatever, my first inclination of a no or a hesitation makes me feel very self-conscious. Like, oh, okay, you are not into me. And then there's almost some embarrassment on my part.
Well, I guess here's the problem that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I think this comes to the social constraints that we've created. And I think they're starting to become much more forward-thinking, is that if a girl has sex, she's a whore. And if a guy has sex, he's a stud.
Yeah, that's the old way. Yeah,
right?
Sure.
So I remember being in high school, hooking up with a girl, and she being very much giving me the green light. Yes, let's make out. Come to my house. My parents aren't home. You come over. Then all of a sudden you go to make advancements beyond making out. And it's like, no, stop. Then I would stop. And then all of a sudden there would be like an invitation to go again, like sit there and then all of a sudden grab me in a certain way. It's like, well, okay, well, you told me not to touch your bathing suit area, but you're touching my bathing suit area. Then I can reach up and grab again. You know what I mean? Like, and then they say no again, which is like this mixed signal. And then it wasn't until I got older that women in their 20s didn't worry the same way. But I started realizing, I was like, oh, it's because when we have sex, you want to say yes, but because society's told you that you're a whore if you say yes. This is this fucked up thing that we have in our world where a young woman and a young man have the same drive for sexuality. It isn't like guys want to fuck a lot and girls don't. Break the news, girls want to have sex just as much as guys do, right? Sure. I mean, if not more sometimes. I mean, girls have a high sex drive equal to men. I'm not saying one's more or less, just it's equal. But because it's not socially accepted for a woman to have a high sex drive, think about it. If you say a girl has a high sex drive, the average response to that, whore, slut, fucking pig, you know what I mean? Like, we're like, really? Like, we're now starting to advance past it where people can say, oh no, a woman can own her sexuality. I mean, shit, for the longest time, fuck, guys I'm friends with would say there and go, oh, you know, my wife's only had sex with so many partners. From a very young age, I used to remember thinking, I'm like, why do you care how many people's been there before you?
I agree with that part.
But a lot of men and a lot of people do care. That's why women want to keep that number lower. Like, that's why I never even ask a girl how many dudes she's been with, because they're all going to fucking lie anyways. You know how guys will lie and be like, well, they'll add a couple numbers to that shit. Girls always subtract a lot of numbers. Girl, 3, I'm like, bullshit, motherfucker.
Yeah.
More like 30, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, if we're just talking in a broad sense, I'll say this. I don't think that there is anything fundamentally wrong with sexual activity in terms of incrementally, in terms of number of experiences, because I think there is a good or a bad reason to do almost anything. My real question is, were you doing it because you were attracted to those people, because it's, like you said, something you wanted to do, it's owning yourself, or were you doing it because you replicate trauma over and over again? You got all this fucked up stuff in your head.
You go to work with all those individuals.
Right, exactly. So right there, I mean, day and night difference. So the scenario that you're painting, listen, I do understand that if somebody is 15, 16,
and I'm talking,
17.
When I'm 15, 16, 17 years old, girls said no, and I've never raped a girl, Jesus Christ, you know what I mean? Like, but I mean, they're not really leaving the situation. You're seeing there. I'm just saying that I think it's a weird line that now I understand as I've gotten older, and that it's more definitive, and I get where the different sexes are coming from and how to understand it. But it's just that, you know, sitting there and look, if I took no, the very first no from every girl when I was in high school, I would have been a virgin. You know, and I never raped a girl. You know what I mean? Like, every girl I had sex with me consensually.
But Frankie,
none of them started off with fucking yes.
Okay, but
it took work to jump through hurdles to fucking get that yes.
Yeah, but you're talking about verbal no's though, right? I mean, you're not talking about, okay, you said no, how about now that I'm applying this arm bar? I mean, it's.
I mean, I can vividly remember one time unbuttoning pants and trying to take the girl's pants and her grabbing her pants and going, no, we can't do this. And me stopping and going back to making out with her. And 5 minutes later, me going back to the pants again. And it wasn't until the 4th time I went to the pants that I get them down. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, is that rapey? I mean, the girl eventually did let me, but she's like, you know, like, and every time she said no, I stopped. But I went back to it again. You know what I mean? Like, okay, well, you said no this time. Let's make out a little bit longer. Is it still no now? You know what I mean? You're not asking to leave. I'm not forcing you to stay here.
Right. Well,
I
do think that there has to be, certainly by you know, for legal standards, there, just like we have an age of consent, there's got to be hard lines drawn in terms of, okay, no means no. But like you were just saying, if she changes her no at some point to okay, I'm willing to do this, then that does create a gray area. I mean, I'm not ready to wholesale prosecute that type of thing, especially when you're talking about underage people, underage people.
And I guess the whole point of this is that obviously I'm not a rapey person. I've never raped anybody. I've never even had sex with a girl who's crying. Like, that just does not do it for me.
Well,
right?
Later they do, but that's after
disappointment.
Yeah, right.
But so I'm thinking if Kavanaugh is a true sexual predator, he's not just that high school kid who was trying to get a little frisky. And this is saying that this did happen, that he really did do this.
Yeah.
There would be some rape victims. This guy's been in positions of power.
There might be, though.
Yeah, and then they're going to come out. You know what I mean? Like, they're definitely going to come out. And a lot more than just fucking, I'm getting a little roughed up, you know, and petted. Like, there would be some actual sexual victims here. Don't you think? I mean, there's no way that if you're a sexual predator and you got away with it and you're in power, you're going to be in your fucking, is he 60s?
No, he's not that old.
50s?
Early 50s.
Early 50s.
Yeah.
You'd be in your early 50s, be in the positions that he has, you know, he's a judge.
Right.
So he has power. You're telling me there's nobody right now that has, there's no victims?
But
I mean, look at what happened to Cosby. The minute one came out, the fucking flood doors open and all. And that's how you sit there and go, okay, 1, maybe 2, maybe 3, or fucking 50 fucking people accuse you of rape, you're a rapist.
Well, you know but I also think, though, that just hypothetically, that actually makes the case for proceeding with caution. And let me be very clear about this, because I don't want anybody thinking that I'm jumping to some sort of liberal conclusion and pronouncing this guy guilty. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I want to be very, very careful about this. I am in no way saying he did this and it's a fact and I don't need to hear any more. All I'm saying is, okay, this is a very, very specialized position. I mean, this is a lifetime appointment. This is a very big deal. You make
laws right now.
Oh, this is a very big deal what we're considering. Yeah.
Arguably more important than the fucking president. And you're going to be there for a lot longer.
Listen, and no different than if somebody said, hey, this guy's got a bad drinking habit. If somebody said something like that, I'd be like, okay, let's really look at that. I want to make sure we don't have somebody showing up drunk to the Supreme Court. I mean, if that were an allegation, let's very closely look at that sort of thing. So what I'm saying is it definitely rises to the level for me of let's make sure we have a specific hearing on this specific allegation, the fact that she's willing to talk, very important. Let's hear from her and all that. And let's just see what comes of it. Maybe nothing. Maybe a week from now, I have to look at it and go, listen, as much as I am probably fundamentally opposed to what some of the, a lot of what this guy thinks, I can't argue his qualifications for the Supreme Court.
Yeah, but give it a speedy trial and don't allow it to, look, the Republicans right now are voted in power. They have the president, they have the Senate, it is what it is. I think that they have the right, and it's their balls in their court. They should be able to put this guy into power.
But they shouldn't be able to ram him through. I think that
but I don't think the Republican or the Democrat Party can go ahead and slow the process down either.
Not without cause. But I do think that this is cause. I think this is certainly cause.
I think it's for speedy.
But I think it's cause for a hearing, and I also think it's cause for the FBI is in charge of doing these background things. So let's go ahead and have them look at this specific thing, and then we'll be good.
Yeah, but this should take a week.
Maybe. Yeah, I'll tell you what. No, you know what?
Give it a week.
That FBI.
I'm okay with that.
No, listen.
If you can't figure this out in a week, then it's over with.
No, you're right. And those FBI background checks can go very quickly. I mean, they're a big bureau. And so you're right. This doesn't necessarily have to take a long time. I think both sides in this case, there's a lot of anticipation over drawing it out if you want to get past November, but there's just as much eagerness to quick, gotta go, get this thing in. I think it's a bad look for both sides when you're factoring in the politics of it, because I think if you're looking at it completely objectively, you would say, you know what, it's a serious allegation. It definitely needs to be heard out, played out. Everybody needs to be talked to, and let's hear what was there, if anything, and then we go from there.
Is it a serious allegation?
Yeah, I think any rape allegation or attempted rape allegation on its face.
Was this attempted rape?
Is serious. I think.
Was this like an attempted hookup and the girl tried to get away? And then it didn't seem like the guy wanted to. It wasn't that persistent. I don't know.
Go ahead, Mikey.
According to the letter that she wrote Feinstein, he and this judge guy.
They both were trying to hook up with her?
It didn't even say hook up. It said that they jumped on her, like they were laughing, put their hand over her mouth, and basically the judge was like encouraging, not the judge.
Yeah,
Mike Judge.
Yeah.
No, Mike Judge was not involved in this, sir. I will not have you besmirch the great Mike Judge.
Anyway, was like encouraging, saying go for it. And he was like trying to pull the clothes off, and basically, it didn't even say like, yes, this guy had his dick out, was trying to rape me. It was
blasting her with fucking right hands.
No, he had his arm or his hand over her mouth, and was kind of on top of her. The most like physical damage she took was said like the weight when they both got on top of her was like.
So two guys, and she didn't get raped. I'm saying that they didn't try to rape her. I don't know. I'm just saying.
But wait a minute. Let's look at it from her perspective. Yeah. Would you have felt
uncomfortable?
Frightened? No. Yeah. Could it have even risen to the? I could easily see if you want to. If I'm going to like put myself in the girl's mindset for a minute. If two guys get me in a room alone. And it's not like one's my boyfriend and we're going to make out or something.
No doubt.
And a guy gets on top of me. He's physically holding me down. He's got his hand over my mouth. No, none of this sounds kosher to me.
No, it's not. But
none of it.
Is it attempted rape, though?
Yeah, I could see where you could reason, especially if somebody's pulling at your clothes, I could see where you could reasonably discern,
so why
hey,
didn't
somebody
they?
might be trying to
Does it say
rape
what
me.
stopped them from raping her?
Yeah, here it is. I feared he may inadvertently kill me. Where at one point when Judge jumped onto the bed, the weight on me was substantial. The pile toppled, and the two scrapped with each other. So basically, they both jumped on her, and then started fighting with each other, and that's when she got out.
Yeah, she said that was her opportunity to escape the room. Let me just say this. Anytime there's a scenario of a girl escaping a room, it's not good. You know, there's a lot of, and I'm not saying that there can't be different degrees of this, and maybe
Hey, man, those girls like that fucking 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah, well, not, yeah.
A little fucking ankle bar, you know what I mean? The spreader.
15-year-olds don't qualify. But listen,
nowadays, Jesus.
I think that these are all, I got to tell you that even at 15, 17, there's a lot of elements of this that I would have smelled a mile away in terms of not being anything I'd want to be involved in. I'm talking about even
that's
just
also
girl,
taking her side of the story.
Oh yeah, no, it's all
exaggeration.
Yeah,
he could have been in the room making out with her, and Mike could have been in there.
Okay.
The guy Judge, whatever, could have been there watching. And
then they need to say that.
You know what I mean? Like
then you're right, but what I'm saying is they need to then say that.
And all of a sudden, her interpretation of the hand on the mouth, and I was like, well, there's people outside the room. I just told you to be quiet because you were moaning. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like all of a sudden, it's like, well,
say that.
You know what I mean? Like me going, shh, wasn't me telling you, fucking, I'm gonna rape you. You know what I mean?
But
like,
understand though, and that would be one thing if they were saying that. But they're saying this didn't happen. I was never in this scenario.
Supposedly, Kavanaugh has personal calendars dating back to high school, and he's going to bring those to testimony, like going all the way back to 82.
Yeah.
And then also the witnesses, a couple of witnesses who the committee has contacted have all said they don't remember the party. But it's up to the committee what witnesses get brought up.
So they've contacted a few witnesses that she claims, and they're like, no.
No, not ones that she claims, just people that were in that social circle. And look, it's tough. What I hope comes out of this, one way or another, and just the whole movement in general, is that if something happens to someone, or almost happens, or whatever is alleged to happen, that there's no more 35-year gaps. That these generations now feel comfortable. There's not going to be stigmas and all that kind of
stuff. That is my first hope out of this now, is that we can get rid of people feeling like uncomfortable to step forward.
Yeah.
So they can step forward why it's fresh, why it's relevant. And I realize it's embarrassing, it's awkward, and it's getting a little bit easier nowadays. And back 35 years ago, it wasn't easy to come forward. So that's not a stretch to my imagination of somebody keeping their mouth shut. But on the flip side, if he comes out with these calendars and we look at this information, and it's pretty obvious that she's making this shit up and being used as a tool to try to slow down this process and screw with this guy's career, I think there has to be consequences. You know what I mean? Just like anytime there's a false accusation, like that, if I can prove that you're fucking false accusations, then if you're trying to take something from him, then you should lose your job. You know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah, and there is legal recourse for that.
Like, I mean, I think then if they find out that she is full of shit, that her name should be dragged through the fucking mud like she was going to drag his name.
Well, and let's also remember too that at least up to this point, there doesn't seem to be any political motivation on her part. It's not like she's some long-term political operative or something like that. Yeah, sure, if you discovered something like that, yes. But it does appear, at least with what we have in front of us.
Why did she send the letter to Feinstein?
Because she lives in California, and that was her senator. And so she basically was saying, listen, in the letter, she said, I have worried, I knew he has been ascending, like in his career as a judge. I've worried that at some point he could get nominated to the Supreme Court. I just want you to be aware of this. I'd like my name to be kept out of it, but I'm just making you aware. So there hasn't been...
Fuck. That sounds pretty... I mean, I can't get mad at the girl now. Like, that seems like a pretty reasonable response on her part. I guess I'm more angry And I feel like she's just being used as a tool, man. Like, I mean, and I guess that's a part of me, like, it's probably detracting from me looking at the situation, is I'm making it political too, because I'm sitting here going, come on, Feinstein, this isn't about this girl, what happened to her when she was 17 years old. You don't give a shit. All you care about is now it's a way of stalling out this till maybe hopefully the Democrats can take over.
Yeah, but Feinstein did sit on it. I mean, she could have rolled that out in July and gotten this going a whole lot sooner. But if
she rolled it out in July,
it would have been taken care of sooner.
If their goal is to delay it, wouldn't it be better?
Exactly why she waited.
To wait and leak it and have it get leaked now?
Yes.
Well,
as late as possible to delay it as long as possible.
Yeah, as close to November as you could possibly get it where it still counts.
But you would have also...
That's why she's completely political on this.
Yeah, but you would have also had to have anticipated this being the reaction. Frankly, I don't know that I would have anticipated this being the reaction.
Really? When she got it a year ago, the Me Too movement was already in full fucking steam. Any allegations of sexual misconduct, that's a fucking silver bullet, dude.
Yes.
She's like, all right, I got this motherfucker. Okay, we got him, and we got some information. We got dirt on so-and-so. Let's save this for when it's going to be the most appropriate time to use.
Maybe. I think I would have thought that if it were a little more substantiated. I have to be honest with you. When I first heard this story come out and there wasn't any more corroboration than there appears to be, I didn't think it would be taken this seriously. I just thought, yeah, maybe, but this 35 years ago and no witnesses and nothing reported at the time. I was a little surprised it was able to go as far as it is. I'm just saying, again, if I look at this objectively, I am definitely comfortable being at the point of, okay, let's hear it out. We definitely need to hear from her. We need to hear from him on the matter. He needs to have an opportunity to defend himself where that's concerned.
And when's that going to happen?
Thursday. And again, I will say this. I do think it's incomplete if they don't get the guy who Mark Judge, who she says is the other person is in the room, at least get him under oath saying that he didn't have anything to do with this.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, if he's willing, if it's the truth, just go under oath and say it.
I agree, and maybe we will see that. All right, nice job, Mikey.